Kicked out of the house at just 16, pregnant and in tears, she heard her grandparents say, "You've shamed us, never come back here again." Alone with her belly growing and nowhere to go, she believed she would never be forgiven. But everything changed the moment they saw the surname written on her documents. The looks of disdain turned into desperation. Suddenly, the very ones who rejected her were on their knees before her, begging for something no one could have imagined. They see, biting wind of winter was nothing compared to the ice that took hold of the hearts of Margaret and Harold Peterson on that fateful night. Heavy snow fell on the middle-class suburb where the couple had lived for more than 40 years. An impeccable house with a white fence and a well-kept garden which hid the cruelty that was about to happen. Emma Peterson, 17, wavy brown hair and green eyes full of tears, was standing on the doorstep. His hands trembled as they clutched a torn backpack against his chest. Under the coat too thin for that relentless cold, her 7-month pregnant belly was unmistakable. "Please, Grandma, Grandpa, I have nowhere to go." Her voice came out broken, almost disappearing in the middle of the sobs. "It's snowing, I need you." Margaret Peterson, 72, white hair neatly arranged in a tight bun, stepped forward. His face, which had once shown affection for his granddaughter, was now contorted into an expression of pure contempt. "Do you dare to show up here? After what did you do? After tarnishing our family name?" Harold, 75, a tall, imposing man who had been a bank director for 3 decades, put his hand on his wife's shoulder. But it wasn't to calm her down. It was to give strength to what would come next. "You destroyed everything, Emma. Everything we have built. Our reputation in the church, in the community. Do you know how many people are already commenting on the Petersons' pregnant granddaughter? The granddaughter is single and pregnant." Emma took a step towards her grandparents, but Harold raised his hand, making it stop immediately. "Don't you dare enter this house. You made your choice when you spread your legs to that bum. Now bear the consequences. He abandoned me," Emma managed to say between sobs. "Alex disappeared when I told him about the baby. I don't have anyone, please." Margaret let out a bitter laugh, cold as the wind that whipped the girl's face. "And do you think this is our problem? You should have thought about this before behaving like any other, a bitch. That's what you are now, Emma, a pregnant bitch who embarrassed the family." The words hit Emma like punches. She staggered backwards, almost losing her balance. His legs trembled so much that he could barely stand up. "Grandma, please." "It's your great-grandson. His blood, it's nothing mine," Harold shouted, his voice echoing through the silent street. "This bastard you carry has nothing to do with us. You're dead to us, you know, dead." Emma fell to her knees in the snow, her hands instinctively protecting her belly. "I'm going to die of cold." "The baby." Margaret took the purse that was hanging behind the door and pulled out 2 $20 bills. He threw the money into the snow near where Emma was kneeling. "This is more than you deserve. Now get out of here and never come back. If it shows up again, we'll call the police." Harold was already closing the door when Emma managed to get up. "You're going to regret that," she said, her voice hoarse from crying. "One day you will regret it." "The only thing we regret," Harold said before slamming the door hard, "is that we didn't realize earlier what kind of a slut you were." The sound of the door slamming echoed through the empty street. Emma stood there for a few seconds, looking at the house where she had spent so many happy moments in her childhood, the house where she learned to make cookies with her grandmother, where her grandfather had taught her to ride a bicycle, where she had been loved. Or at least that's what she thought. She stooped down with difficulty and picked up the 2 snow-wet bills. $40. It was everything her grandparents thought she was worth. He kept the money in his pocket and began to walk, each step an agony. His feet were already numb from the cold. Her belly hurt. The baby moved, as if feeling the mother's despair. On the other side of the door, Margaret and Harold Peterson returned to the heated room. Harold poured himself a glass of whiskey, while Margaret adjusted the cushions on the sofa, as if nothing had happened. "We did the right thing," Harold said, more to himself than to his wife. She brought it to herself. "Of course we did," Margaret agreed, turning on the television. "Imagine if someone from the church found out that we sheltered a pregnant and unmarried teenager. What would they say about us? That we are conniving with sin?" "Exactly. Our reputation is worth more than anything. We have worked our whole lives to build our name in this community. Let's not let a little destroy everything. While the grandparents settled into their comfortable living room, Emma wandered the snow-covered streets. Each breath was a cloud of vapor in the icy air. Her lips were already purple. His hands, even stuffed in his pockets, looked like pieces of ice. She walked for hours, not knowing where to go. The $40 were not enough, even for a night in a cheap hotel. Her feet led her, almost by instinct, to the only place she knew where she could find shelter, the homeless shelter in the city center. The queue to get in was huge. Men and women of all ages, all with the same lost, defeated look. Emma never imagined that one day she would be there, fighting for a thin mattress in a crowded hall. But I had no choice. It was either that or freezing to death. "First time here, honey," a soft voice snapped her out of her thoughts. She was a black woman, perhaps 50 years old, with a gentle smile despite the circumstances. Emma just nodded, unable to speak without crying. Pregnant and on the street. "Let me guess, family kicked you out?" Emma waved again. "It happens more than you think. Come, stay close to me. I'll teach you the rules here. The first is protect your things. The second is never ever trust anyone completely. And the third," she paused, looking at Emma's belly, "is to protect this baby with her life. It's the only pure thing you have now." Emma was finally able to speak. "Thank you. What is your name?" "Rose, what about you?" "Emma? Well, Emma, welcome to hell. But don't worry, we learn to survive. We always learn." That night, lying on a thin mattress that smelled of mold, listening to the snoring, coughing, and crying of dozens of strangers around her, Emma put her hands on her belly. "I promise, my love," she whispered to the baby, "I'm going to give you a better life. I swear I will. We're going to get out of this. Both of us." The baby kicked as if he understood, as if he was saying that he believed in her. Emma didn't know it, but that baby's life would change everything. The little being that grew in her womb carried a surname that was worth billions, a surname that his grandparents would give anything to get back, a surname that would make them kneel and beg for forgiveness. But this she would only discover months later. 6 months had passed since that brutal night. 6 months that felt like 6 years for Emma Peterson. His body had completely changed. The belly was now huge, heavy, making every movement a challenge. His back hurt constantly. His feet were always swollen. But she continued to work. Mel's Diner was in a seedy part of town, the kind of place where truck drivers stopped for coffee at 3 in the morning and prostitutes ate their meals after a night's work. The smell of grease was pervasive in everything, on the walls, on the floor, on the clothes. Emma didn't even feel it anymore. He had gotten used to it. "Emma, table 5 wants more coffee," shouted Sal, the cook, a fat, sweaty man who had a heart bigger than his immense body. Emma grabbed the carafe of coffee and walked with difficulty to the table. Every step was agony. The belly seemed to weigh a ton. But she smiled. He always smiled. Tips were best when she smiled. "Here it is, sir," she said, pouring her coffee to a man in his 60s who was looking at her with pity. "Honey, you shouldn't be working in this state," the man said, leaving a $10 bill on the table. "Keep the change." "Thank you, sir." "Thank you very much." Emma kept the note in her apron pocket. Every dollar counted. Every penny was important. She had managed to rent a tiny room in a building that looked more like a tenement. $50 a week. No bathroom of its own. No kitchen. Just a single bed and a window that wouldn't close properly. But it was better than the shelter. Much better. It was 2 in the afternoon when the first twinges began. Emma was cleaning a table when she felt it. A sharp pain, unlike anything I had felt before. She stopped, took a deep breath, waited for it to pass. But 5 minutes later, another one came. "Salt," she called, her voice trembling. I think it's time." Sal dropped the spatula and ran to it. "Shit, Emma, now? 2 weeks to go. The baby doesn't want to wait," she said, leaning on the counter when another contraction came. This time stronger. "I'll call an ambulance." "No," Emma cried. "I don't have insurance. I can't afford the hospital. Where are you going to have this baby then?" Here on the restaurant floor. Before Emma could answer, the door to the restaurant opened. But he was not an ordinary customer. 3 men in black suits entered, their faces serious, professional. Behind them, 2 more, all wearing sunglasses despite the cloudy day. "Mrs. Emma Peterson?" the man in front asked. Emma tried to respond, but another contraction hit her. She screamed, bending over in pain. "She's in labor," one of the men said, speaking into a small radio. "We need medical transport immediately." Who are you?" Emma managed to ask between contractions. "I work for the Rothschild family, ma'am." "We came to get it." "Rothschild? I don't know any Rothschild. You knew young Alexander, right?" Emma's heart almost stopped. Alex, the baby's father. The boy who had disappeared without a trace. "Alex, where is he? Did he send you?" The man hesitated for a moment. "Please, Mom, let's take you to the hospital first. Mr. Rothschild will explain everything." "Mr. Rothschild?" "Alexander's father. Richard Rothschild." Emma didn't have time to process the information. Another contraction, this time accompanied by unbearable pressure. She felt the liquid running down her legs. "The water had broken. Now!" the man shouted. In a matter of seconds, Emma was placed on a stretcher and taken to a private ambulance that had just arrived. It was no ordinary ambulance. It was equipped as a mobile ICU, with equipment that Emma had never seen. "Take a deep breath, honey," one nurse said, putting an oxygen mask on her face. "It's going to be okay." The trip to the hospital was a blur of pain and confusion. Emma could barely keep her eyes open. The contractions came one after the other now, without pause, without relief. When they arrived at the hospital, it was not the usual emergency. Emma was taken directly to a private suite on the top floor, the type of room that looked more like a five-star hotel than a hospital. Doctors and nurses waited for her, all moving with surgical precision. "We're going to need to do an emergency C-section," the obstetrician said after examining her. "The baby is suffering." "No, please. I have no money. Everything is already paid for, Mrs. Peterson. Don't worry about anything but your baby." Emma was prepared for the surgery in record time. Anesthesia was applied. She felt her body fall asleep from the waist down. A curtain was put up, preventing her from seeing the procedure. "It's going to be okay, Emma," the anesthesiologist said. "In a few minutes you'll get to know your baby." It was then that the door to the operating room opened. A man entered. Tall, perfectly combed grey hair, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Emma would make in years. His eyes, piercing blue, were filled with tears. "Mrs. Peterson," he said, approaching the head of the stretcher. "I'm Richard Rothschild, the Alex's dad. Yes, and grandfather of the baby that is being born. Where's Alex? Why did he abandon me? Why?" Richard took her hand. His voice came out choked. "Alex is dead, Emma. He died 3 weeks ago." The world stopped. Emma felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. "Dead? No. It can't be. A plane crash in the Alps. He was coming back from Europe. Coming back to look for you. Was he going to come back?" On his deathbed, he confessed everything. "About you, about the baby. About how my wife and I forced him to abandon you. How we paid for him to disappear, afraid of a scandal. Emma, I'm so sorry. We destroyed the lives of both of you because of our pride, our damn last name." Emma began to cry. Tears of pain, anger, sadness. Alex was dead. The father of her child was dead. It's being born. The obstetrician announced. Emma heard the cry. Strong, healthy. The cry of his son. "It's a boy," the doctor said, lifting the baby up for her to see. "Perfect. Absolutely perfect." The baby was cleaned quickly and placed on Emma's chest. She looked at that little face. The little eyes closed, the tiny little hands. It was Alex's face, identical. Richard Rothschild approached, tears now streaming freely down his face. He is beautiful. Just like my son when he was born." "What's his name?" the nurse asked. Emma looked at Richard, then at the baby. "Alexander. Alexander Rothschild IV," Richard sobbed. Thank you, Emma. "But there's one condition," Emma said, her voice weak but firm. "Anything. I want him to know the truth, the whole truth. About how the father was forced to abandon me. About how I had to survive alone. About everything, of course. I promise." It was then that the door to the suite opened violently. Margaret and Harold Peterson rushed in, their faces red, panting. "Emma," Margaret cried. "My granddaughter!" "We knew. The surname Rothschild. She stopped when she saw Richard Rothschild by her bedside. His eyes widened in recognition. Everyone knew Richard Rothschild. His face was always in the newspapers, in the magazines. One of the richest men in America. "Sir, Mr. Rothschild," Harold stammered. Richard turned to them. his face changing from sadness to contempt in a second. "And are you?" "We are Emma's grandparents," Margaret said quickly. "The baby's grandparents. The grandparents?" Richard interrupted. "The same grandparents who kicked out a pregnant teenager in the middle of winter? The same ones who called her a slut? That they threw $40 in the snow and told her to disappear?" Margaret turned pale. "How do you—" "Emma told me everything as she prepared for surgery. Every sordid detail of how you treated her." Harold stepped forward. "That was a misunderstanding. We were nervous, upset. But now you have found out that the baby is a Rothschild," Richard added. "Now they found out it's worth billions." To fully understand the magnitude of what was happening in that hospital room, we need to go back in time. We need to understand who Alexander Rothschild III was and how Emma Peterson came into his life. 10 months earlier, on a spring afternoon, Emma was in the public library studying for her high school finals. She has always been an exemplary student, perfect notes, impeccable behavior, the pride of her grandparents, who loved to tell everyone in the church about their studious granddaughter, who would get a scholarship to university. That's when he came in, Alexander. But back then, he was just Alex. Messy dark hair, piercing blue eyes, a crooked smile that would make any girl sigh. He wore simple clothes, jeans and a t-shirt, nothing that gave away his true identity. Nothing that showed that he was heir to a pharmaceutical empire. "I'm sorry," he said, pausing next to her desk. "All the other seats are occupied. Can I sit here?" Emma looked up from the books. His heart raced immediately. "Of course. Studying for what?" he asked, pulling out his chair. "Physics. I have a test tomorrow." "Physics? Wow, you must be very smart," Emma blushed. "Not so much. What about you? Are you studying?" "I'm actually hiding," he said with that crooked smile. "Hiding? Whose own?" "Of my life." There was something about the way he said it, a melancholy in his eyes that touched Emma deeply. "Complicated life. You have no idea. My father wants me to be a person I'm not. He wants me to take over the family business, marry the right girl, have the right children, live the right life. The life he chose, not the one I want." "And what do you want?" Alex looked her in the eye. "Now." "To get to know you better." Emma laughed. "That was terrible, but it worked." "You're laughing." And so it began. Casual meetings in the library that soon turned into coffees together. Cafes that became dinners. Dinners that turned into long walks in the park, talking about everything and nothing. Alex never mentioned his real last name. He said his name was Alex Smith, that he was taking a sabbatical before college, that he lived temporarily in the city, lies mixed with truths because he really was hiding. Hidden from the life his father had planned for him. "My grandparents will kill me if they know I'm going out with a boy," Emma said one of those evenings, as they walked hand in hand. "Are they too strict?" "You have no idea. They think that any display of affection before marriage is sin. If they knew I kissed you—" "Then we won't tell," Alex said, pulling her in for one more kiss. For 3 months they lived this secret romance. Emma told her grandparents that she was in the library or at a friend's house. Alex ran away from the security guards that his father sent to watch him. They were two young people in love living in a bubble, pretending that the outside world didn't exist. It was one night in June that everything changed. Emma's grandparents had traveled to a church retreat. She was alone at home. Alex showed up with a bottle of wine he had stolen from his father's cellar. "We shouldn't," Emma said, but her eyes said otherwise. "Only this once. To celebrate." "Celebrate what?" 3 months together. The best 3 months of my life. They drank, laughed, they kissed. And then in Emma's room, in the same room where she had slept since she was a child, surrounded by teddy bears and posters of pop bands, they made love for the first time. Emma was 17, Alex 19. Neither of them thought about protection. Neither of them thought about the consequences. They were in love. And when one is in love, one believes that love is enough to protect one from anything. 2 weeks later, Richard Rothschild's security guards finally found Alex. "You have to go back," they said. "Your father knows about the girl." "How did he find out?" "He always knows, Mr. Alexander. Always." Alex tried to resist, but he had no choice. He was taken back to the family mansion in Connecticut. Richard Rothschild was waiting for him in the office, an intimidating room with mahogany-lined walls and portraits of generations of successful Rothschilds. "A teenager, Alexander?" A nobody, is that what you want? Throw away your future for a teenage adventure. I love you, Dad, Richard laughed. A cold, humorless laugh. Love? You don't know what love is. Love is sacrifice. Love is duty. Love is preserving the family legacy. This girl, Emma Peterson as Ana Sanchez, it is nothing. Daughter of dead parents, raised by lower middle-class grandparents. Is that what you want to bring to our family? Money is not everything, Dad. No, but that's almost everything. You're going to break up with her. Today. Now. No. Richard stood, his presence dominating the room. So I'll do it for you. I'm going to destroy her life. I will make sure she never gets into any university. I'm going to make sure her grandparents lose their home. I'm going to make sure she wishes she had never been born. You wouldn't do that. Test me. Alex knew his father. I knew he was capable of carrying out every threat. What do you want? You go to Europe. Now it will stay there for a year. No contact with her. No explanations. It's just going to disappear. She's going to look for me, and it won't find you. Alexander Smith does not exist. It never existed. Alex tried to argue, beg, but it was useless. That same evening, he was put on a private plane to Zurich. No chance to say goodbye. No chance to explain. Without knowing that Emma was already carrying her child in her womb. Emma waited. Someday, 1 week. Called the number Alex had given. Disconnected. He went to the places where they were. Nothing. It was as if he had evaporated, and then 3 weeks after Alex's disappearance, Emma found out she was pregnant. The pharmacy test showed 2 pink lines. 2 lines that changed everything. She did 2 more tests. All positive. Sitting on the bathroom floor, hugging her knees, Emma cried until she had no more tears. For weeks she hid it. He wore baggy clothes. He avoided his grandparents. But when she started to get morning sickness, when she started rejecting breakfast, Margaret noticed. Are you sick, Emma? It's just a virus, Grandma. But Margaret was smart. He had raised a daughter. He knew the signs. When was your last period? Emma froze. I don't remember. Don't lie to me, girl. It was then that everything fell apart. Margaret forced Emma to audition in front of her. When the result appeared, hell broke loose in the Peterson house. A slut. That's what you are. A filthy slut, Margaret shouted. Harold had to be restrained so as not to hit his granddaughter. 17 years. 17 years thrown in the trash. You destroyed your life. It destroyed our reputation. Who is the father? Margaret demanded to know. Alex. Alex Smith. And where's this Alex Smith? He disappeared. Harold laughed bitterly. Of course it disappeared. He used you and threw you away like garbage. That's what men do to easy girls. I'm not easy. I loved him. Love? Margaret spat out the word. You don't know what love is. Love is commitment, marriage, family. What you had was lust, sin, and now it will pay the price. For months they kept her practically prisoner at home. No phone, no friends, no contact with the outside world. The plan was simple. Emma would have the baby, they would give it up for adoption, and then they could pretend nothing had happened. But Emma had other plans. On the night she completed 7 months of pregnancy, she filled a backpack with the little she had and fled. He left through the bedroom window, the same window through which Alex used to sneak in. She walked to her grandparents' house on the other side of town. Maybe, just maybe, they would forgive her. Maybe they understood that she needed them. Perhaps blood spoke louder than pride, but he didn't. And so it was that 17-year-old Emma Peterson, pregnant and abandoned, found herself thrown into the snow on that brutal winter night, unaware that the father of her child was not Alex Smith. It was Alexander Rothschild III, unaware that the man he loved was in Europe, drinking himself to oblivion, trying to forget the girl he was forced to abandon. Back in the hospital room, the tension was palpable. Margaret and Harold Peterson were standing in the doorway, their faces alternating between despair and barely concealed greed. Richard Rothschild regarded them with the contempt of someone who recognizes his own nature reflected in others and does not like what he sees. Please, Margaret stepped forward, her hands shaking. We are family. We are Emma's blood. We have the right to be here. Emma, still weak from the cesarean section, hugged the baby tighter against her chest. Right? You lost any rights when you threw me in the snow pregnant? Honey, we were altered. Harold tried, his voice too honeyed to be sincere. You need to understand it was a shock. Our pregnant granddaughter. But now we see that we have made mistakes. We want to be part of the baby's life. Be a part of his life. Emma laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. You wanted me to have an abortion. When I said no, they wanted me to give him up for adoption. You never wanted this baby. They only want it now because they found out who his grandfather is. Richard Rothschild took a protective step towards Emma. I think you should leave. Who do you think you are to tell us to leave? Harold puffed up his chest, trying to look intimidating. We are maternal grandparents. I'm Richard Rothschild, he replied calmly. And this baby is my grandson, the sole heir to the Rothschild empire. And you are two despicable people who abandoned a pregnant child out of pride and prejudice. Margaret began to cry, tears that seemed genuine, but Emma knew that theater too well. Emma, my love, please. We created you. We gave everything to you. We feed, we clothe, we educate. You did the minimum that the law required, Emma interrupted. And they charged me with every penny in obedience and submission. Every mistake was remembered. Every kindness was charged afterwards. That's not true. Harold protested. No? Do you want me to tell Mr. Rothschild about all the times you reminded me that I was a burden? That my parents were irresponsible for dying and leaving you with me? Do you want me to tell you about the beatings with the belt when I got less than an at school? Richard clenched his fists. Did they beat you? Discipline, Margaret said quickly. It was discipline. Children need limits. Did a child who only got perfect grades need to be beaten? Richard asked. It was then that the door opened again. A woman entered, tall blonde, wearing an impeccable Chanel ensemble. It was Victoria Rothschild, Alexander's mother. She looked at Emma, at the baby, and her eyes filled with tears. Real tears, different from Margaret's. Can I hold it? Emma hesitated. This woman had also been part of the plan to separate her and Alex, but there was something in his eyes, a genuine pain, a real regret. Please, Victoria pleaded. I lost my son. Let me at least meet my grandson. Emma slowly held out the baby. Victoria picked it up with infinite care, as if holding crystal. He's identical to Alexander as a baby, she whispered. Identical. Margaret saw an opportunity. Mrs. Rothschild, we are the other grandparents. Surely you understand the importance of the family? Victoria cut her off with an icy stare. Family? Do you dare to talk about family? Richard told me what they did, how they treated this poor girl. It was a misunderstanding. No, Victoria said firmly. It was not a misunderstanding. It was cruelty. Pure and simple cruelty. You did to Emma exactly what we did to Alexander. You chose pride and reputation over love. The difference is that we are here kneeling, asking for forgiveness. You are here for greed. Harold lost his composure. We have rights. Legal rights. We are the grandparents. Try it, Richard said, his voice low and dangerous. Try to fight me in the courts. I'm going to bury you in lawsuits. I'll lay out every sordid detail of how they treated Emma. I'm going to make sure that everyone in this miserable city knows exactly what kind of people you are. Margaret fell to her knees beside Emma's bed. The movement was so sudden that everyone was startled. Please, Emma, please forgive us. We made mistakes. We made a big mistake, but you are our blood. Our only granddaughter. Please get up, Grandma, Emma said, her voice weary. Don't humiliate yourself, not now. It's too late. It's never too late for forgiveness, Harold tried, also kneeling. The scene was pathetic. Two old men on their knees, begging not for love but for a chance to touch the Rothschild fortune. Excuse me? Emma repeated. Do you want my forgiveness? Okay, I forgive you. Margaret and Harold looked at each other hopefully. I forgive, Emma continued, because holding a grudge only hurts me. But forgiving does not mean forgetting, and it certainly doesn't mean allowing you into my son's life. You can't do that. Harold stood up furious. We will fight. We will go to the press if necessary. Let's tell you how the Rothschilds are trying to steal our grandson. Richard laughed. Are you going? So let's see who the press believes. The family that took in and is taking care of the mother and baby, or the grandparents who expelled her pregnant in the winter. We're going to tell our version. And we're going to show you the security cameras, Richard said casually. Margaret froze. Cameras? Oh, didn't you know? As soon as I found out about Emma, I had everything investigated. We got the recordings from your street security cameras. The image of you throwing money in the snow to a pregnant teenager kneeling is, well, it's pretty clear. The audio didn't catch everything, but it caught enough. Vagabunda is a word that can be heard clearly. Harold's face turned purple. You can't. I can and I will if necessary. But I prefer them to leave for good. Leave and never try to contact them again. In return, I do not publicly destroy your reputation. Margaret looked at Emma one last time. You're going to regret it. One day when you need a real family, you will remember that you rejected us. Emma shook her head. A real family does not abandon. A real family does not choose reputation over love. Real family. Real family is here with me now. She looked at Richard and Victoria, who even with all their mistakes were there trying to fix it. She looked at her baby, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos around her. He even looked at Rose, the woman at the shelter who had turned up with flowers stolen from some garden, because he heard that Emma had given birth. Go away, Emma said at last. Go and never come back. Harold took Margaret by the arm. Let's go. It doesn't end here. Yes, it does, Richard said. If you try anything, really anything, you will find out what it is like to stand up to the full power of the Rothschild family. And believe me, you won't like it. The couple left, Margaret sobbing, Harold mumbling empty threats. When the door closed, Emma finally allowed herself to cry. Cry of relief, pain, exhaustion. Victoria returned the baby to her. Oh, you were very brave. I had no choice. We always have choices, Richard said. You chose to protect your child from them. It was the right choice. What now? Emma asked. What happens now? Richard sat in the chair next to the bed. Now, if you allow it, we would like to be part of your life. Not to control, not to command, but to support. To give you all that my son would have given if he could. Was he really going to come back to me? Victoria took Emma's hand. In the last month in Europe, he called every night, begging us to turn back, saying that I loved you, that I couldn't live without you. Finally, Richard relented. Alexander was coming back to look for you when the plane crashed, Richard added, his voice breaking. Emma looked at the baby. I'll tell him. When I grow up, I will tell him that his father loved him, that I would have stayed if I could. We're going to help, Victoria said. We have photos, videos, letters that he wrote but never sent. You'll be able to show him everything. Letters. Richard pulled an envelope out of the inside pocket of his jacket. He wrote to you every day. He never sent them because we wouldn't let them, but he kept them all. When he died, we found hundreds. Emma picked up the envelope with trembling hands. Alex's handwriting was on the front. To Emma, my only love. 5 years had passed since that dramatic day in the hospital. Emma Peterson, now Emma Rothschild, she had accepted the surname not for status but to honor Alex's memory, was a medical graduate from Harvard Medical School. It wasn't easy. Even with all the financial support from the Rothschilds, the sleepless nights studying while taking care of a baby, then a small child, were brutal. But she succeeded. With distinction. Little Alexander, or Xander as everyone called him, played in the garden of the Rothschild mansion in Connecticut, the same mansion where his father had been forced to abandon his mother. Now it was a place of laughter, not control. Richard and Victoria had changed, profoundly transformed by tragedy and redemption. "Mommy, look," Xander shouted, showing a drawing he had made. "It's Daddy in heaven." Emma knelt beside him. "It's beautiful, my love. Grandma Victoria said he's taking care of us from up there, and it is. It always is. It was a Saturday morning when the phone rang." Emma answered distractedly, hoping it was a colleague from the hospital where she was doing her residency in pediatrics. "Emma? Emma Peterson." His voice was weak, trembling. Emma took a moment to acknowledge. "Grandma, Emma, I need to talk to you. I said I didn't want any more contact. Harold died." The words fell like stones. Emma sat up slowly. "When?" 3 days ago. Heart attack, fulminating. Emma didn't know what to feel. The man who raised her, who also rejected her, was dead. "The funeral is tomorrow," Margaret continued, her voice breaking. I know I have no right to ask for anything, but could you come, please?" Emma closed her eyes. 5 years. 5 years without contact. 5 years of silence. I'll think about it. "Emma, wait. There's something I need to tell you, something Harold never let me talk about." "What?" "That night, when we kicked you out." "I went back. An hour later, I went out to look for you. I went all over the city, but Harold, Harold had locked the door. He said that if I brought you back, he would leave the house. And I was a coward. I chose my wedding over my granddaughter's. Emma felt tears in her eyes. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm dying, Emma. Cancer, terminal, 3 months at most. And I don't want to die without trying. Without at least trying to fix what I broke. The silence extended between them. The funeral is at 2 o'clock, Margaret said finally. Main Street Baptist Church. If you don't come, I understand. The line was muted. Emma looked at Xander, who continued to draw, oblivious to the drama. He looked at Victoria, who had arrived quietly and heard part of the conversation. You should go, Victoria said softly. Why? After everything they've done. Not for them, for you. To close this chapter. And maybe to show that you're better than all of us. The next day, Emma entered the church wearing a simple black dress. Not the Chanel that Victoria had offered. Not the jewels he could now buy. Just Emma as she always was. The church was almost empty. Half a dozen people at most. Margaret was in the front row, hunched, aged well beyond her 77 years. When she saw Emma, she began to cry. Emma sat down next to her. He said nothing. He just held his hand. The service was short. The pastor had general words about Harold being a man of faith. Emma almost laughed. Faith in what? In appearances? Later in the cemetery, only she and Margaret stood before the grave. He regretted it, Margaret said suddenly. In the end, he regretted it. I used to look at photos of you as a child. Cried. He said that he had lost the only good thing we had done in life. Too late. Yes, too late. Margaret turned to Emma. For the first time in 5 years, they looked each other in the eye. You look good, strong, beautiful. I managed to finish college. I'm a doctor now. Pride flashed through Margaret's eyes, followed by sadness. Your mom would be so proud. My mother would never have kicked me out pregnant. No, I wouldn't. She was better than us. It always has been. They started walking back to the cars. Margaret limped, leaning on a cane. The boy, Xander. Is he happy? Emma stopped. How do you know his name? Margaret smiled sadly. I accompany you. Through the newspapers, the internet. I saw the photos of your graduation. I saw when the Rothschilds created the foundation in Alexander's name. I saw everything. From afar like a stranger, but I saw it. He is very happy. It has everything a child needs. Love, mainly. He looks like you when he was little. But he has his father's eyes, and you've never met Alex. I saw photos. When it came out about the accident, I looked up everything about it. I wanted to understand who was the man my granddaughter loved. They reached the cars. Emma drove a simple, practical SUV to carry Xander's things. Margaret looked surprised. I thought you'd have a chauffeur, a luxury car. The Rothschilds offered me all this. I refused. I accept only what is necessary for Xander. His education, health, security. The rest I pay for myself with my salary. You've always had character, even when we try to break it on you. Margaret began to cough. An ugly, painful cough. Emma, out of medical instinct, approached. How long have you been like this? 6 months. Lung, metastasis in the liver, bones. It's everywhere now. Are you undergoing treatment? For what? To live a few more months alone in that empty house. Emma looked at the woman she once called her grandmother. She saw not the cruel woman who threw her out, but a broken old woman, dying alone, paying the price of her choices. Xander should meet you, Emma said suddenly. Surprised by her own words, Margaret widened her eyes. Would you allow it? With conditions. Supervised visits. Do not try to indoctrinate him with your beliefs about sin and shame. No criticism of me or the Rothschilds. And if he doesn't want it at any time, it's over. Yes, anything, and one more thing. I want you to tell him the truth. The whole truth. About how he treated me, about what he did, and about how he regretted it. I want him to learn that actions have consequences, but also that people can change. Margaret wept. Why? Why are you doing this? Because my mother taught me in the few years I had with her that hatred corrodes the soul. And because I want my son to be better than all of us. To be better, he needs to understand that people make mistakes, regret it, and sometimes, just sometimes, deserve a second chance. I don't deserve it. No, it doesn't deserve it. But it's not about you. It's about the kind of person I want my son to be. 2 weeks later, Margaret Peterson entered the Rothschild mansion for the first time. Richard and Victoria received her coldly, but respected Emma's decision. Xander was playing in the playroom when Emma called him. "Xander, I want you to meet someone." "That's Margaret." "She is my grandmother." The boy looked curious. "You're a little candle." Despite everything, Margaret laughed. "Yes, I'm quite old. Why has it never come before?" Margaret looked at Emma, who beckoned her to continue. "Because I did something very ugly to your mother. I was mean to her when she needed me the most." "Why?" "Because I was silly. I thought that unimportant things were more important than love. Mom says love is the most important thing. Your mother is right. It always has been." Xander thought for a moment. "If you really apologize, I can forgive you. Mom says that forgiving is good for the heart." Margaret knelt down with difficulty, standing at his height. "I'm sorry, Xander. I'm sorry I hurt your mother. It was the worst thing I've ever done in my life." The boy looked at Emma, who smiled encouragingly. Then he hugged Margaret. A quick hug like a child, but it meant everything to the elderly woman. For the next 3 months, Margaret visited weekly. He told stories about Emma's mother. She taught Xander how to make the cookies Emma loved as a child. And above all, he observed what he had lost due to pride and prejudice. When the end came, Emma was by her side in the hospital. "Thank you," Margaret whispered, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for being better than me, for breaking the cycle. Grandma, take care of him. Take care of Xander. Teach him to love without conditions, no judgments. Teach him to be like you, not like I was." Margaret died at dawn. Emma cried, not for the grandmother who rejected her, but for the grandmother who could have been. For the relationship that pride destroyed. For the choices that cannot be undone. At Margaret's funeral, the church was full. The Rothschilds came by Emma, colleagues from the hospital, friends Emma had made over the years. Rose, the woman from the shelter, wearing the best dress she had. Xander put a drawing on the coffin. It was him, Emma, and Margaret, all holding hands under a rainbow. To Grandma Margaret, he said, "I hope you meet Grandpa Harold in heaven, and you are happy." Years later, when Xander grew up to become a young entrepreneur, revolutionizing the pharmaceutical industry with affordable medicines for underserved populations, he always told his family's story. The story of the teenage mother who was rejected but never gave up, of the billionaire grandparents who learned to love above pride, of the great-grandparents who paid the price of cruelty but received forgiveness in the end. "My mother taught me," he said in lectures, "that a person's true worth is not in their last name, bank account, or reputation. It is in the ability to love unconditionally, to forgive genuinely, and to always choose to do right even when right is difficult." Emma's now director of the pediatrics department at Boston's largest hospital, which specializes in treating children from needy families, always smiled when she heard those words. She had turned her pain into purpose, their rejection into redemption, his story of abandonment in a legacy of love. Margaret and Harold Peterson died believing they had lost everything by rejecting Emma that winter night. They were right. They lost the chance to see their granddaughter become an extraordinary woman. They missed the chance to meet their wonderful great-grandson. They lost the opportunity to be part of a story of overcoming and love. But in the end, Emma did something they would never have done for her, offered mercy. He gave Margaret 3 months of redemption. 3 months that would not erase years of cruelty, but that at least allowed an end with some peace. Richard and Victoria Rothschild lived to see Xander graduate from Harvard, just like their parents. But unlike Alexander, Xander was not forced into anything. He chose his own path with the full support of his family. "We learned," Richard said on his deathbed years later, "that trying to control who our children love only leads to tragedy. Emma taught us that. Emma saved us from ourselves, and Emma found love again years later. With a widowed pediatrician who had 2 children, he built the family he always dreamed of. A family based on love, not surnames or status. She never forgot Alex, her first love, but he also never let tragedy define his life. Instead, she used her story to help other abandoned pregnant teenagers, creating the Emma and Alexander Foundation, which has helped thousands of young mothers. When asked about forgiving her grandparents, Emma always replied, "Forgiveness is not about them. It's about us. It's about not carrying the weight of hate. It's about breaking cycles. It's about choosing love over bitterness." The Peterson house was sold after Margaret's death. Emma bought it and turned it into a foster home for pregnant teenagers rejected by their families. The front sign reads, "House of Second Chance, where love has no conditions." And so the story that began with rejection and cruelty ended with acceptance and love. The story of a teenage girl thrown into the snow who got up, survived and thrived. The story of grandparents who chose pride over love and paid the highest price. The story of a billionaire family who learned that money doesn't buy what really matters. But above all, it is the story of Emma Peterson Rothschild, who proved that it is not the surname that defines a person, but their choices. And she chose love. Always love. Today, if you walk past the Petersons' old house, now Second Chance House, you'll see pregnant teenagers walking in with fear and walking out with hope. He will see Emma, already with grey hair, hugging each one of them and saying, "Joe, you are not alone. You'll never be alone again." And if you pay attention, you can see the spirits of two elderly people watching from the window. Margaret and Harold Peterson, condemned to eternally witness the love they denied. Seeing their home become what it should always have been, a place of welcoming, not judgment. A place of love, not pride, because in the end, as Emma always tells her girls, love always wins. It may take time. It can hurt. But love always wins. What about those who choose pride over love? Well, they discover, as Margaret and Harold did, that pride is a cold companion on lonely nights, and reputation does not warm empty hearts. If there's one lesson in this story, it's this. When you have to choose between what's easy and what's right, between reputation and family, between pride and love, choose love. Always choose love, because surnames disappear. Fortunes are gone, reputations are forgotten, but love is eternal, and Emma Peterson Rothschild is living proof of that.